This is the Inkpulp Podcast. This is the Inkpulp Podcast. Comics, hip hop, life. Every time I step to the microphone, I put my soul on 2-inch reels that I don't even own. I remember the first time hearing that song, that album, Lab Cabin, California, when it came out. I remember driving in my Isuzu Amigo, and I remember hearing those words. And, I mean, I've been a Far Side fan since before that and to this day. And I remember hearing something different there. And it really made me think. I remember their first album, Bizarre Ride, was this celebration of joy and excitement. Sort of the rush of success happening, of getting a deal, of knowing your art is going to be heard or seen by a large audience, that you got your break. And that album had that energy in it. And then I remember Lab Cabin. It had the come down from that was what I got from Lab Cabin. It's very soulful, very introspective, and really honest about so many things in their lives. And it hit me on a visceral level, like good music always does, but it hit me on a personal level too. I felt it, and it really resonated with me. But that line got me thinking. Every time I step to the microphone, I put my soul on 2-inch reels that I don't even own. What was once exciting had now become a feeling of imprisonment, was my perception. And it got me thinking, because at the time I was trying to launch my career as an artist. And I've always felt very protective of my art. It's something very sacred to me. And I had vision, I had voice, and there came a time where that dream of working for Marvel Comics and DC Comics was all that mattered. And then I got in there, and I had my Bizarre Ride moment of like, here I am, I've done it, this is it, my break. And then I remember, and this is fairly, well, I remember, I probably started feeling this way before I admitted it to myself, but it was a good 2 years ago where I really fully admitted it to myself, where that's exactly what I was feeling. I wasn't enjoying the work. I felt trapped by the work. I was doing what I had to do to get it done so I could get a paycheck. I still was pouring myself into my work. There was never a point where I was drawing something where I was like, I don't care. I did care, and I cared too much. And it was for stuff I didn't own. And it really, 2 years ago when that kind of hit me, I was like, all right, it's time to stop that. And that's a hard thing to admit, and that's a scary place to be, to walk away from a dream. But what you realize is, or what I realized is, the dream is ever growing. And you dream and you work towards something. And then when you get there and you're doing it, as you're doing it, it becomes normal. And then you start to see the downsides or the flaws or just the rush of it doing it, or the repetitive nature of doing it, all starts to chip away at the patina of that dream. And it made me realize I have to answer to myself. I have to be fully independent. How do I do that? And that's where I am. And why am I talking about this right now? Welcome to the Inkpulp Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Crystal, and I have a reason. I'm talking about this because today I have on two artist friends who are also part of Essential Sequential, which is Jason Schachter's crew of artists who he's our art rep. He sells our original artwork, organizes our convention appearances, does a lot of amazing things, and we're all a part of this business of his. So today I have on two friends from that group. I have Eric Canete, who you've seen on my podcast before. You've heard of my podcast before. Eric is responsible for this podcast existing in a lot of ways. And today I've also got Reis. Now, Rod is a Brazilian artist who joined the group fairly recently in the last couple years, I believe. Rod, I apologize if I'm off on that, but going on my memory here, and sometimes it's a little foggy. But I think I got a solid fucking trap up here. I got a good memory. Probably about 2 years ago. Maybe a little more, but not much. I'm on that. But Rod came in the group, and when I first met him, he came up to me. He was a big fan of my original podcast, Inkpulp Audio, and he was a real big fan. So he'd always wanted to be on, and I wanted to have him on. And then COVID hit, and we talk about it a lot. He dealt with some pretty serious stuff, but he used to have a podcast of his own. In fact, he had several podcasts, and we talk about that. But COVID hit him and his family pretty hard. We talk about that. So Rod, he's just a fan of the podcast, which was cool. So I did want to have him on. He invited me on to his Instagram Live, and we talked. And during that talk, we kind of got on this talk. Like, he's working for Marvel right now, and he's very excited, as he should be. And he was talking to another Brazilian artist. And they were talking about other artists working for Marvel who seem like, I don't know if bitter is the word, or unhappy. And they were like, you get into bed with Marvel understanding these things, understanding that they're going to put you on a tight schedule, understanding that they're probably not paying you what you're worth for most people, understanding a lot of this stuff. And they're like, so you just accept that and you'll be happy working for them. Well, I accepted that at first, and then I wasn't happy. I'm not cool with that. That shit's not cool to me. I'm the type of person, if I'm working for someone, it's what happened to me at art school. It's what happened to me in jobs throughout my life. When you start to see the shit that's going on, I'm the type of person to speak up. And not like, I fight for change. I want to see better. I want to see you do better, not just for me, but for all my artist compadres. So we kind of got in that. Had that talk, and I felt like I sounded like a real bitter asshole, but I don't like the way Marvel and DC are operating and treating their talent these days. I don't. Now, you've got your upper class at Marvel and DC are treated just fine, but the majority of the workers, the freelancers, the middle class, say, I don't think they're treated fairly. So I'm out. Don't care what. So, but when the topic comes up, I'm like, I don't buy that well, you just accept it and find happiness in it. Fuck that. They're a corporation. They're making a killing on the backs of all these people. It's not right. I'm going to step away and I'm going to speak up. So we kind of talked about that, and when it ended, I was like, shit, I sounded like an angry fucker. And I said, look, let's continue this conversation on my podcast, and we talk about it here. And I tried to keep my emotion down a little bit. But look, it's an emotional subject for me. So it's hard. I'm a passionate dude. I got passion in me. And my artwork is important to me. But so I'm moving in my direction, and I'm very fucking happy about that. And all the shit at Marvel that kind of pushed me away from that, now in hindsight, was the universe saying, hey man, just, this is where you need to be. Go over here. So, I'm glad. for that in hindsight. It's all fucking beautiful. So yeah, and then of course Eric's like my Yoda. You know, I'll call Eric when I need a grounded sounding board. He is a extremely diplomatic human being, and he always has sound advice for me. So I wanted him on this too to see where he weighed in. So it's an interesting conversation, and I don't think that's the bulk of this episode. We talk about so many things, but it's a piece of it. But it just got me thinking. Here I am on the Far Side Network. That line popped in my head, and it made me think about this episode. So think about it, and enjoy today's podcast. Peace.
Hey, how's everyone? I know you had a tragedy in your home. I am so sorry. My condolences to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Beside this, which is huge,
It is huge.
It's a tragedy.
Yep.
I'm taking a lot of good things out of the situation, actually.
Okay.
This is good because Rod and I kind of touched on this when we were streaming, and this is why we wanted a podcast to get into some of this stuff. So go ahead, Rod. Talk about the positives.
Well, first, I'm trying to think about the bad things and see what I can take out of this for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like what can I change? I think the situation allows me and allows everybody to rethink a lot of things.
And
in
what way, Rod? Like, what kind of things what in your particular case? What kind of stuff are you rethinking?
For example, family is one of things.
Yeah.
I used to not keep in touch with my parents.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We never had a normal, the close relationship between us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now, because what happened, I'm trying to reconnect with them.
That's awesome.
And it's been very, very nice for me. It's been also because of the pandemic, I had to slow down a little because things at Marvel almost stopped for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had time to spend with something else besides work. You know what I mean? Which is very rare. Is very not happen very often.
What kind of stuff did you end up spending time on? Is it still art related, or is it something for yourself, just time off, or?
It's both. It's both things. It's the time off.
Uh-huh.
So I had more time to spend with my wife.
Yep.
Doing stuff for us.
Yep.
Playing board games. What else? Watching TV. It's like this schedule thing is very hard for me. It's very difficult. I never work out this thing. So lately,
What do you mean, Rod? What schedule?
What I meant to say is because the deadline is the work. I always put the work in first place. Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly what I mean.
Right.
I gave up. I ended up giving up my time with her to have more time working.
Right. This kind of gets into some of the stuff you and I were talking about before, and
Yeah.
I like I forget how you posed the question, but it was something to do with if you work for Marvel, you just you just accept all the flaws and enjoy it. But like for me, that was a big thing. Is in order to sustain a living while working for a company like Marvel or DC at the rates they're paying, which are low, you have to give up so much of your personal life to do so. And that's like that sort of stuff. After 5 years, I was done.
Okay, but the thing is this my fault, or is this Marvel's fault?
How is it? What do you?
I think that's my fault. The way I deal with my personal life.
All right. Well, for me, I can't say it was my fault because I was working nonstop, incessantly. I wasn't screwing off anywhere. But I think the bigger problem here is they don't pay enough. That's kind of the point I'm making, and that
you're right. Fault. You're right. If you think that you're giving up your life for drawing for Marvel, they're not paying enough. But at the same token, what we talked last week was know exactly where you're at, what you're going to do, how much are you going to give up of your life, and how much are you going to give up, how much the quality, for example, I'm learning that I don't need to give my 100%.
What do you mean 100%?
In quality.
You don't have to?
Yeah. If I need to give up my my time with my wife,
right,
it's not worth. If you put both things in perspective.
I understand that, but I feel like if Marvel were to pay better, I don't mean to single out Marvel, but DC too, and give you the time you need, you could put out work you're very proud of and have the life you want, and still have time for your wife. And I mean, that's
but that I don't think that exists.
It does. I think it exists if you make it exist. At Marvel and DC, I don't think it does. You're right, and I think that's that again gets into one of the problems I have with working for them.
Hey Rod, has it always been, one of your goals to work for a mainstream company?
Yeah. I don't know if it's happened in US too, but here, all young kids from my generation and maybe this generation, they want to. They don't know the difference between I want to draw Spider-Man, I want to draw Batman, and I want to make comics.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference. So I wanted to work for the majors. I wanted to work with Captain America. I wanted to work with Spider-Man. But later on, I learned how the difference. And now what is happening is that I want to things at Marvel. They are working for me very well. I want to use this as my profile is getting higher. I want to use this to do my stuff later. And as I was saying, I can't give my 100% for my personal projects, and I can give my 80%, which is good for me. for the mainstream. It doesn't mean that I'm going to not do my best.
Yeah, I
Do
understand what you're
good.
saying. I understand.
It's just that I don't want to lose to waste time. Not waste. I mean, I don't want to lose moments of my personal life
Yeah.
Right.
for
That makes sense.
the job.
Well,
Yeah.
In
Hey,
that
Rod,
one
can
of the
you
things-
do me a favor, Rod? Can you move the camera just a little bit so we can see what you're painting?
oh yeah,
I'm
move.
Because-
sorry.
There you go.
Okay, it's
Because it would-
it's okay. Well, let
That's
me
better.
see.
Yeah, you're getting better. There.
getting better.
Okay,
It's getting
okay,
there.
good. Let me know
Yeah,
if
that's great.
the camera move.
Yep, that's great, man.
That's good.
Great.
Rod, I was
Sorry.
just going to say to you, that was my plan too, was to work at Marvel and DC to raise my profile and then go off and do my own stuff. But it didn't quite go that way for me. So when I hear you say that, it gives me a little pause. I mean, maybe, and you seem to be doing well at Marvel. I'm not saying you're not, but for me, like the lesson was maybe I shouldn't have waited. Maybe I should have just gone and done my own stuff and found a way to make it work then.
And that's okay. That's okay. I think it's your choice.
No, but
Right.
But what I'm saying is think about that. If you're relying on Marvel to working for them to raise your profile, it can go that way certainly, but it also might not go that way.
Yeah. You're right. But I can say, as personal experience, I never planned to work for Marvel. You know, I think I said before I worked as colorist.
Right,
DC.
that's right. You did say that, yeah.
For 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Eric, did you know he did that?
I didn't.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no, I colored the Aquaman 52, new 52 with Ivan Reis.
Yeah, I saw that Superman drawing you just posted that you colored over him.
Yeah,
it was really pretty. It was really pretty. I really liked the work you did on that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we worked together for a long time.
So you work kind of exclusively with Ivan?
No. Yeah. Once we found out that we have a good chemistry and we make a good creative team.
Yeah.
We work it together. We closed our team on.
Okay.
So yeah, we did a lot of things together. Then suddenly Kyle Higgins, we were working together on Nightwing.
Yeah.
He called me. He saw my drawings and he said if I was interested in do something for Image. Then I had to choose between keep with my career,
right,
which was a well-established career as colorist, and change everything and start a new career as a penciler, as an interior artist.
Yeah.
So I never planned that too. I just went with the flow and I took my chances, and then because of this choice, Marvel hired me to
That's
do
awesome.
more to do stuff with them. And again, from the beginning, I never planned to I never imagined that I could have the chance of work for Marvel.
But you dreamed of it when you were a kid, you said?
Yes. But as a something very far, very because in Brazil back in the 80s is with no internet, it's like was impossible to imagine a way to do that.
Right. That's a good point.
So I'm very lucky. I don't know if I can say that, but things that what happened, they just happened, and I took the chance. I need to make the decisions, and so far seems that I'm making the right decisions for my career.
Rod, let me just, I want to get back to Eric's original question because I kind of took everything in a different direction, but real quick, I think it'd be nice to talk about like techniques of what we're doing a little bit. So you're painting a Captain America and you're using watercolor and a flat brush right now?
Yes, this is my base, my base color, right? I tend to use mixed media. So for starters, I'm using the watercolors. Then once it's dry, I will see what I can do to add the shadows and all the lightings, or the lighting effects and everything.
What will you do the shadow work with? Watercolor? Are you going to go to gouache or?
So the thing is, I never know what I'm going to use.
That's amazing.
Like I have colored pencils. I have.
What did you pencil what is the underdrawing done with? Is that a color pencil or graphite?
The sketch is colored pencils.
What is it? All the same color?
Oh, you mean? Sorry.
The Captain America drawing. Did you use just one pencil, like one color?
No. I used blue pencil for the general drawing. Then I use this red pencil to draw these shadows and to mark this.
Do you use red for any reason, like any color choice reason that'll come through at the end of the painting? Or that you just like the contrast of blue and red to do simple and refined parts of your drawing with?
No, I'm experimenting with that actually.
Okay.
And the only thing that came to my mind was I want the lights to be warmth, right?
Okay.
Like I want to add some yellow light here.
Yeah. Are you going to use? Do you know what you're going to use for that? Watercolor, gouache, both?
I think watercolor and also I can use the Crayola. I like
I know
how
the crayons. Show that again, talk, Rod, because this is awesome. Speaking.
Yeah, I hope I have time to use them so I can show how I used it.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. He uses Crayola crayons. Okay, so and the reason I was asking is because this is one of a few paintings I'm working on right now where I started with color pencil to get all the values established, and I used black. And as I'm moving forward, I'm like, what if I started messing with color in the drawing portion of the painting? And that's why I was asking you. But
okay, what do you use? Acrylics?
Right now I'm using these acrylic inks, and I'm using them very thin. And then after that's done, I'll use this acrylic gouache to bring out the highlights and reflective light and stuff. But I'm going to build, what I'm working on right now is building as much depth into these rocks as possible. So in the foreground, I want to really build these up to a dark sepia, and then in the background, I might just leave them very faint like they already are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. One thing that I want to say is that I never attended a school of art.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
Eric. I don't think Eric did either, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm.
You did not.
Eric, are you a self-taught person?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let me see if you think the same way that I think around this subject. I never attended a school, so I have to learn as I was facing the challenge. I knew what I wanted to do. Then I was looking forward. I'm looking at ways to get there.
Right.
So a lot of basics I missed it. And
Wait, what? A lot of days. What was that first part?
A lot of basics. I think he said that.
Basics.
A lot of basics. Yeah.
Yeah. I learned what I wanted, what I needed to draw. So I don't have a process well established. I don't have I just know. I just know how to get there.
Yeah.
If it makes sense. So it's like having a puzzle with missing pieces, but you can see the main figure anyway. It works anyway.
Well,
yeah.
So
you,
it's hard
you have
for
a
me
goal. No, you sounds
So,
like you have a goal in mind, right? You
Uh-huh.
have something in your head that you're like, okay, I want to go. I want it to kind of look like this, but because of the lack of formal training, whether it be school or university, you don't necessarily know the foundational stuff. You just know the goal, right?
Yeah, I learned by myself some foundations.
Yeah.
In order to be a colorist, I had to learn color theory.
Right.
But I had to learn Photoshop.
Right.
But I would never teach Photoshop or teach coloring because it's hard to teach what you learn instinctively, by instinct.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Rod, I think that your process, because you haven't been like formally trained, I envy it a bit, because your whole process is about the journey of creating, and you're completely open to discovering as you go, and I think that's an amazing thing that you have. Whereas like I am very much the opposite.
But the learning curve when you have formal you go to school, it is better. I think it's more complete in the.
Why is that, Rod? Why do you think that?
Because it takes a lot of effort to learn things by yourself.
That's assuming also you have teachers who know what the fuck they're saying. Which is a big assumption, I think, in the world of art school right now.
Yeah.
But Eric, I would point to Eric as someone who is self-taught and one of the most amazing artists I've known.
You're right. And let me hear from Eric what you think about this.
About the idea of schools. It may have been parts of what I believe in everything that you're saying. Right? Your personal experience to me is 100% true to your journey, to where you've gotten. For me, I came from a very, I would say not, my mother worked 2 jobs, right? I didn't have the opportunity to be able to afford formal training, much less like state training, like there's different kinds of universities in the US, Rod. There's like a state school, which is more local, right? And then there's a university, which is like the more expensive version, but especially bigger universities like Art Center, which was, when I was living in California, was the place that you wanted to go to if you wanted to be in industrial design, or Cal Arts if you wanted to be in animation. But for the foundational stuff, I didn't have access to that. So, but I still wanted art as a career. And I knew for sure that I didn't, I couldn't afford it. Now, luckily for me, I got hired to work at an animation company when I was 17. So immediately I started getting practical experience, right? Like on the job experience. And I was being taught by guys who had been working in the industry for decades, right? So if I didn't know how to do something in perspective, they would show me what that looked like. If I didn't understand lighting, they would show me what that looked like. And this is all at 17 years old, and it's happening real time, Mm-hmm. So whereas if you were in university, this would take like 4 years, this was happening in about 8 months, right? Like in 8-9 months. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I retained everything. Like I don't remember everything that I learned, but what it established in me is the muscle to go, well, if I want to learn that, I've actually got to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of foundational teaching when it comes to school and university has so much theory in it. The practicality of doing it isn't as well taught. You know what I mean? They'll talk
Eric,
about
Eric, can I just say how right you are, from having been a teacher for as long as I was, that you just nailed it.
Yeah, everything is taught in theory, and this may work or that may work, but I think until you start making a lot of mistakes, until you start applying what you kind of learn in theory and then put it into actual practice, you don't really know whether or not it works for you, because theory, especially when it comes to the stuff that we do, sequential art, right? Theory works in the most general way, right? Like this could work based on X, Y, and Z artists that we've studied so far. But how you turn that into something that's useful for you, and more importantly, unique and signature to the body of work that you're doing, that doesn't happen until you actually start doing it, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I've learned anything in that experience, learn as much as I can up until the point where I go like, okay, I'm not learning anything else, and now I'm going to start doing it, right? So to your question, right? Like without formal training, would university or would formal, would it have been better for me? And I would say, because I have the benefit of, history and looking back, I'd say no. For some people it works, but I don't think it's the best way to go about it. I think there's so much theory that's being taught, and I also am very practical, Rod. So I always think of it as like, how much is that learning going to cost me? Like I just had a conversation with my father-in-law, and we were talking about how when kids leave school, they are immediately in debt, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And can you imagine, especially now if they went to school in order to learn the stuff that we're doing, there is no guarantee that once you leave school, there's going to be a job waiting for you. So can you imagine leaving school, being X amount of thousands, if not tens of $1,000s in debt, and now going like, okay, so how do I apply this skill that I've learned? How do I begin to do that? So there's all sorts of things bouncing around in my head, and I always think the best way you can gain experience is learn some foundational stuff. Especially like in your case, you had to learn color theory because you were coloring a book, right? Mm-hmm. But did you have to go and learn like, layout and composition and anatomy, and you know what I mean? That's not necessarily that, I'm not saying that you didn't know it, but it wasn't as prioritized, You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
so I think there's stages to learning, and you don't have to learn everything all at once, all at the same time. You just have to be self-aware enough to go like, okay, what do I need to know right now based on the job that I want? Based on the goals that I'm trying to go for. Because sometimes it's a job, sometimes it's just getting better at craft, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because everything happened so out of the blue, and I didn't think about, maybe wasn't a good idea to change things, to jump into this, to jump into that.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about what I had to learn in order to do it. I just had to do the leap of faith.
Yep. Well, you had to learn what you had, or you had to learn what you had to in order to continue to be a viable artist for the industry that you're in, right? Like, you, in order to make a living, in order to get by, you needed to be a good colorist, if not a great colorist. So you got really, really good at that, right? And so I think that's what people are missing now, is that there's an assumption that foundational learning has to be about everything. And I don't think that's true. I think that's actually a hindrance, because foundational learning often revolves around theory. And if you just, you have to decide, and it's not to say that you can't change your mind later, like you, rather, you started off as a colorist, but then suddenly you got the opportunity to go be, the guy who's actually drawing the book. So then you go like, okay, I think I'm pretty decent at drawing this anatomy stuff. Now I can focus on that and get even better at that, right? So I think everything can be done in stages, and not everything should be taught from a theoretical standpoint.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a waste of time.
Mental masturbation.
Yeah, I think there's.
But I hope that people, when they listen to this, especially what I'm saying, don't think that it works for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to understand, and it took me a while to kind of accept this on my own, but everyone's journey is completely unique to them in terms of their art and this career, and everyone's got a different story to tell and a different means of creating.
Yeah, and another thing that about this what I'm missing when I didn't have the formal education. When you see Brian Stelfree's painting, right?
Yeah.
You see that he start doing a layer, a under color, which can be purple, can be a gradient from yellow to green, and after a couple of layers of ink, you see that is something completely different happened.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And suddenly you have a color scheme. And for me, it's very hard to think this way.
Yeah. Well,
like think about the future. Think about the foundation and what's going to happen.
Right. But also, I think Rod, I mean, I know Brian well personally. He taught me a lot when I was coming up. He's a very academic thinker when it comes to art. And I think that's one way, but I think there are artists like out there that are not. Like I've spoken to Andrew, and Andrew's often just saying, well, I mean, he has reasons for doing what he's doing, but he also is like, I just felt like doing it this way, and he'll trust his gut. Whereas Brian like has a system in his head that he follows. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm just saying it depends on the person, I think, and their personality.
Yeah, I'm more like a chaotic artist.
Right, right. That's what I was going to say. Is and then earlier, that's what I was saying. Is one of the things I like talking to you about, and I admire watching it in action. Is seeing how organic your flow and process is, because I'm someone who's so like logical. I don't know if logic's the word, but
Well, you lean
planned,
closer to
measured.
Yeah, you lean closer to Brian than you
Yeah,
would to Andrew in your examples, right?
right, right. But I am trying to learn how to let go of some of that stuff, and I think I am. I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm doing a lot of things to embrace some of Andrew's teachings to me, because I interned under Andrew. This at the same time, I would drive up to Macon from Savannah. I'd spend the day with Andrew or a couple days in Macon. Then I'd go up to Atlanta and I'd go into Gaijin for a day and get lessons from Brian. So I had
Right.
these two incredible artists teaching me things, and Brian could explain everything and gave me a reason for everything, which as a student for me, I needed that. I needed to understand why I was doing. But now, like as an adult with some years behind me now, when I first started like getting into painting again, I spent a lot of time on the phone with Andrew, and it gave me the confidence, or the maybe it's not confidence, but I get excited about not knowing. Like I don't know where this is going, this painting.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
listening to it as I go. I have a general idea of what the colors are, but I've also stopped like trying to plan it all out in my head, and I come into the painting. Like the initial wash, which you can probably see, is this gold yellow, and this I don't even know if you can see it, this really warm, almost reddish brown. And
Mm-hmm.
that was, I didn't know what that was going to do, and I didn't know what it would do when I laid green on top of it. Um, and I'm just kind of listening to it as I go. So yeah, I'm learning. I'm
It's
growing.
a
Yeah, no, the
mess,
same,
Sean. It's a
same for me.
mess.
I'm gonna save it, Eric. Don't you worry. Rod, you were gonna say something?
No, I was saying that this is the same for me. I never know where what's going to happen with the drawing. I can't change. I never stick with the initial plan for
Yeah.
to the end.
I think for
I
me, go ahead.
just leave. I just leave the painting to tell me what the direction
Yeah,
he
that's
wants.
awesome. And that's, for me, what allowed me to do that was embracing the idea that I don't know. And if I don't know, I've got to figure it out as I go. And if I do something wrong, it'll just teach me not to do it again. But so far, all the mistakes have led me down a path of learning. And that's all I'm really focusing on, is making each one get like taking a lesson or two from each painting, instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to make a perfect painting.
You guys are too much chaos for me, man.
Well, Eric, I'm saying all this with a giant grain of salt, because I am wired how I'm wired.
I was getting, yeah, that's still too much chaos. That's still not enough planning.
All right, so well then let me back up, Eric, and see if this makes you recent. I knew going in, I
Yeah.
wanted a really flat orange background, because the reflective light on the Hulk is going to be cerulean blue. And I've
Right.
recently become very obsessed with the use of cerulean blue.
Right.
And it's because of the Impressionists, the post-Impressionists, but also looking at a lot of Phil Hale's paintings. He did a series where the background was just this flat cerulean blue, and I like that. So my whole goal here is to do whatever I have to do to get that blue to sing. So there is intent.
See? It's not like you're just going in there throwing paint on the canvas.
No, that's what Rod's doing. I'm not there. I don't mean to make
You have a plan. You have a plan.
I have a plan. Now I'm open to different paths taking me towards my destination as I go, because I'm not informed enough to guide myself directly there. With experience, that is where my mind will take me one day, because that's how I am.
You're going to eventually rod it. Is that what you're saying? I get it.
No, I'm eventually it's going to be all like, I know exactly where I'm going. It's going to be a whole plan in my head, because no matter how much I throw myself into the deep waters of like forcing myself to discover as I go,
yeah.
as I learn, I start to apply the plan.
Gotcha. All right.
It's just my nature.
Can I come back a little quick?
Yeah.
To the initial question that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One of things that changed because the pandemic is that since Marvel was very slow, I opened my commission list.
Yeah.
And I have to say that it's been a couple of months where all I had to do is drawing and painting and having fun. Not like what is working with a schedule, a monthly book. So I learned a lot of things. The drawing, my painting got better because of this. I had creatively, I was happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that was an awesome thing that happened, and I hope that I can take this to moving forward.
Right.
Were you creatively unhappy working under those schedules, Rod? For Corona?
Yeah, but I'm not going to say I wasn't happy, but I didn't feel creatively challenged.
Right.
Because because of the deadlines, you need to go to move on automatic.
Right.
You don't can afford to think too much about the layouting, the narrative,
Right. And that I mean, for me, that sucks, because when I make a comic, I want to make something as good as I can make it, and I want to do whatever I can to make the narrative work better and make the shots work better and all that stuff. So for me, that was that kind of like sunk into my thinking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Sean cares too much, Rob.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, coming back to what
Sean's a true craftsman. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and you can have your personal projects where you can give your best, but I don't know if they care about your best at this publishers.
No, they don't. No, I agree. I don't think they do either. That's not true. It depends on it. I do feel that my Batman project that I did was I at the time, that was the best work I was capable of, and DC was, or I should say Mark was, right on board with me doing that and helpful. So I think it's possible. I think it's rare.
Mm-hmm.
And Marvel,
wait. It's rare that you can do your best work on mainstream comics.
That was my experience. Under the schedules that they were giving, it became harder and harder at Marvel I think there are a couple of issues I did at Marvel that I had the schedule I needed that allowed me for it, but that was that was not the norm.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's a crazy statement, Eric?
That you can do your best while working. I don't think that's crazy. I think that part of what Rod was talking about early in our conversation is true, which is like you have to relegate your personal expectations to not turning in your best because you know that the environment is not set up so that you can do your best. Now, the fact that you could find your Batman work to be some of the best stuff that you've ever done is, like you said, the rare exception. But as it is, as comics is set up, it's not meant for people to turn in their best work. They're meant to turn in the best work given the situation.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Right. So if you want me to build the fastest, safest race car you've ever seen, or like, the most astounding space shuttle, right?
Right.
And you wanted me to do it in 8 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something is going to suffer, right?
Right.
Something is going to end up not going into space somehow, right?
Yeah.
But you have to look at it to go like, what is the intent, right? Is it to just send something into space? I can cross that off the list, right? But if you wanted to go into space, what do you call it? Fast. If you wanted to go into space efficiently, one of those boxes, I'm not going to be able to check off. I will just barely be able to get something into space. Right. The guy driving that shuttle is probably going to die, right? Because that's going to need more time to develop, right? Bringing it back from space, that's probably going to be impossible. That's going to be stuck in orbit forever,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel has built a what do you call it? Or I don't want to pick on Marvel. Like mainstream comics has built a system to just barely get something into space.
Right.
Everything that we've spoken about in regards to notable exceptions, regardless of company, whether it be Marvel or DC or what have you, have always been a special projects. All the things that were referred to in this day and age have been special projects or pet projects or independent of their space launching or shuttle launching into space campaigns, right?
Right.
And that is like Dark Knight Returns, right? Watchmen.
Right.
If you go to the Marvel side, all of the stuff that required that we now refer to as like, man, that was amazing, was rarely ever monthly books. So if you want to set up an artist to do their best work, I do not think doing it monthly is going to be the best way to go, right?
Yeah.
But if you do want it monthly, you're going to get work that is just good enough.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, I'm so happy working for Marvel because they allowed me to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, I'm so fortunate to they let me do my coloring, my stuff, crazy, not too house style. So just to clarify something, I think that the point for me is what you're going to give up in order to get your 100%.
I understand.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's the mathematic you need to. And if you're going to give up time with your family, they need to pay you a lot of money.
Right.
If you're going to give up this.
Right. I agree. But they're not going to pay you that money.
No.
Yeah, and I don't think they're in the business of doing that.
No.
I think for every person that steps away and says, "Hey, I can't do this because I choose to be, with my family instead," or to Rod's point, I don't want to sacrifice this thing that's so much more important to me, right?
Right.
There are 5-6 people that are in line for that,
Right.
who
That's
will
really
be
true.
more than happy to take on and make that sacrifice. Now, whether or not they'll continue to make that sacrifice X amount of years from now, and that's a good point of reference, is that when you first break into the industry, when you first cut your teeth on something from Marvel, something, let's just say mainstream, right?
Right.
You are a lot more open to sacrifice. You are a lot more open to, like, yeah, I won't, I'll prioritize deadlines over family, my relationships, my other commitments outside of work. I'll prioritize work instead.
Right.
But the further along you go, I suspect, and this is not for everyone, I suspect you either deprioritize the quote unquote like best work ever that you put just enough work so that you can spend time with family, so that you can do all the other things that is not work or deadline related. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I see that more and more the further along a guy is in their career.
I think you're totally right about that.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, I want to get back to Eric's very first question because I thought it was a good one. And
what did I say? I forgot.
You asked what were the positive experiences that you've gotten out of this COVID experience, Rod. And I know you talked about your schedule stuff, but what else? Because I know there's other stuff too we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm enjoying very much slowing down. What makes me time to think about a lot of things, to reset priorities, to set new priorities, because a lot of things that we take for granted, we're not doing this, or not. Again, I use it not to see my parents very often.
Right.
Now I miss this, having the choice to see them.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
you said you didn't have a great relationship with them before this, and this is closer together.
Yes. When I told my father that I wanted to work with comics, we didn't speak for 3 years.
Because of the decision to work in comics?
Yes.
Why? What was the problem with that? Was it that you were going to be an artist, or was it because of comics specifically?
He got me this job in a bank.
Oh.
Then when I have the chance to invest on this career,
yeah,
I just I didn't think twice. I just say, okay, I'm out. I'm going to do what I want to do, and he apparently he didn't like back then.
Right.
So,
but now I understand the reason anyway, and
but
now that I
go ahead.
No, now that I prove it to him that I can be successful.
Yeah,
He is one of my best friends right
That's
now.
great, man.
And you said, and you had him on your podcast, Rod?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And was that the first time you guys spoke after 3 years of not speaking?
No. First time that we came back on good terms was when I got divorced for my first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he was the only person that I wanted to talk about. And we talked, and we started talking in good terms and become fathers and son, right?
Right.
That's great, man.
Then, because I was doing all my podcasts and using them as the therapy for many issues I was having,
Right.
I decided to record one podcast with him,
Mm-hmm.
where we spoke, we talked as two men, as friends. Not we went we passed the father son talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And that was important to understand his reasons and his flaws and everything. And then he told me dirt stories from his past when he was kid, and he
What kind of stories did you say?
some fun, dirty stories.
Okay.
Things that you usually don't say, don't talk to your son, or you wait
Right.
for
I got you.
your son to have a certain age to understand, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And this helped this helped us to have right now a really good relationship.
That's
And
great.
I said to Sean last week that I was the one who gave the news to my mother about my brother passing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this was the hardest thing ever I had to do.
I bet.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's a lot.
So I'm trying to get this better, at least get this part of my life with not having regrets, not have, because the other thing is that I was having problems with my brother. It's been years since last time we spoke.
Wow.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And
So when your brother got sick, were you speaking or no?
no, I was I used to ask my mother and my father for news. I was worried about, because when he got COVID, we knew that probably something like this would happen, because he had diabetes, overweight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's totally danger area. No good to have COVID.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So we never had the chance to set things right.
You never had that chance?
No, because the last and he was a Bolsonaro supporter.
What does that mean, Rod?
Our president, he liked it. Our president.
Right.
Oh, he was like a Trumpy in Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
look, for the American listeners who may not know, Brazil has a president who's as nutso, if not more so, than our own.
Oh no, yeah, no. Here's Brazil right now. Is like a dark reflection of US in that sense.
Ooh,
Because everything you have there, we have, but because our country is economically very weak, all the damage is way worse than.
Right.
So
anyways, just to finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
I blocked him on Facebook.
Oh my God. So
because of that.
Was the tension between you and your brother political in its origin, or were you guys not speaking and then the politics made it even harder?
The politics thing made harder. Yeah, we are from. He made a lot of bad choice financially, and I got affected by this. So
And that's where the tension started.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and sadly, we never had the chance to talk because he wasn't a bad person, but a very problematic person.
All right.
Yeah, and yes, it is what it is. It's so I don't want to make the same mistake with my parents.
Right.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Well, I mean, this is good for me to hear. I'm having a lot of trouble speaking to a relative of mine as well. So hearing your story is making me think about a lot of things right now.
Good. I hope that it helps. And coming back to the podcast thing, after that, he's my best friend right now, and
your dad.
One thing that yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And all the podcast thing for me was very helpful and taught me a lot of things. And I love when I discovered your podcast, I felt the same because I could relate to the conversations and struggle and everything. And that was my goal when I started doing podcasts, to share my problems and more so to talk about this, which for me was very difficult. And so I took advantage of the media to speak out, to talk about those things.
How long have you been podcasting for, Rod?
No, right now I'm not doing this anymore. I quit podcasting, but I did for good 2-3 years.
And
at some point, I had 4 podcasts going on at the same time.
Crazy.
Yeah, Rod had explained to me on his Instagram Live, podcasting became a problem for him. Like he was obsessed with it and doing it too much. He proposed to his wife on his podcast too, but then he was podcasting so much it became a problem with his wife and him between them.
Holy cow.
Yeah, but once I brought her to this universe, she totally understood, and everything.
Wait, which universe, Rob?
The podcasting, this thing that
gotcha.
I was obsessed about.
Right.
No, I had one podcast to talk art with my friends. I had one podcast to talk life with my wife. I had one podcast to talk bullshit with my other friends. And also I created the Doctor Who podcast to discuss.
Did you really?
Yes.
That's a popular
dude, I understand why you got burned out. That's a lot of things to maintain all at the same time, dude.
Yeah.
But man, I had a lot of fun producing, and it was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would hate to think that you did it because you were miserable. It's obvious that you're having a good time, or else you wouldn't continue. It'd take a special kind of brain to go, I really hate doing this, but I'm going to continue doing it. But yeah, no, I understand why you had to wind all that down. Just listening to it makes me exhausted, man. Just tired, just listening to like all the things that you just described.
Yeah, but once my comic book career started working, I had to make the decision, and
Sure.
of course I had to let it go.
Yeah. You made the wrong decision, Ron. Comics, come on.
There's more money in podcasting, Rod, don't you know?
You're having more fun during podcasts, Rod. Forget about comics.
And I learned all by myself how to edit, how to what to do, and everything.
Yeah, but that's fun though, right? Like learning all of that stuff. It's really a lot of fun. It's not as much work as people think it is, because when you're passionate, like for instance, this is also applicable in art. When you're enjoying yourself, when you're passionate about something and you're like super into it, only on reflection, years later, months later, weeks later, right? When you look back, then you go, fuck, that's a lot of work, but in the moment that you're doing it, the research, even the money that you end up spending on it, because it gets pricey, right?
Yeah, it does.
Like any endeavor that you're super into, that's not, something that's just gonna, into your interest one day and out of your interest the next day, something that you're really into, it can get really expensive. More importantly, it can get really time consuming, right? So it's a lot of work, but you don't see it when you're in the middle of it, like
you're right. You're totally right.
You don't even paying attention to it. You just think of like, okay, so what else can I do in order to make this thing cooler? Or, I'm having so much fun, I'm going to do the next thing that challenges me, and then like you take a step back from it, you go like, okay, well, I'm done with that. I'm going to focus on this part of my career.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to ask you now, Rod, it's like, was it a lot of work? I bet you'd be like, oh, fuck yeah. It was a lot of work. It was.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I use it to stay late. I stay out late working on the podcast, on the editing. But it was fun. I had no regrets. Yeah. And what you said, that exactly what made so easy to let it go, to say, now I'm done. I'm ready for the next thing to be obsessed about.
It's right now, it sounds like your freaking art career,
Yeah,
but also, and
I
here's
can say that.
Here's the thing that I've recognized about you, right? Like, it's just based on this conversation. I think I believe that you're that kind of guy that has dedication built into your personality, I think in regards to, especially the three topics, let's keep it to the three topics that we talked about so far, which is art, right? And the broadness that is breaking into or making a career of comics, right? And then just now you were talking about podcasts and how you were doing like 4 or 5 or 10 or 20. I lost, like, the moment somebody goes, I did more than one thing at any given time. I have a number of things that I can do, which is like 3 all at the same time, right? And that third one is going to suffer no matter what, right? But the important one to me, that's a standout, is what the pandemic has done to you and how much you've rededicated yourself to family, And that's a big one, right? But it's in your personality to identify the thing that it's important to you. In one case, it was podcasting. In the other case, it was comics. But now it's family. And you're like, I'm going to now de-emphasize, not make bad, right? Not abandon art, right? I'm now going to de-emphasize the kind of dedication that I used to put into my comic book career and rededicate myself to become a better son, a better husband, you know what I mean? And that's amazing. That's great. So that's the one thing I've recognized. Like, oh, Rod kind of likes being obsessed about things, but not obsessed in a bad way,
Right.
Yeah, and that's what when I say I'm a nerd person, that's what I want to say. I go deep when I find some and then when I find something that caught my attention, my interesting, I go deep. I want to do my best to learn about it, and it's going to last when it's good. And I can go to another thing. It's going to be okay.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
Eric, let me ask you. You just said like you can do two things, and it'll be functional for you. But once you hit the third,
I can do three things, but that third thing is going to be fucked up no matter what.
how
matter what.
Take you to come to that realization?
Like 35 years.
Yeah.
It took a while to understand that you can do relatively two things decently, right? Or one thing amazingly, exceptionally, right?
Right.
But you are going to do three things, and that third thing is going to be done in the most mediocre way possible.
That's
And I think it's just our brain's capacity to take on this sort of things. Like the third thing has to be substantial, right? You just can't be like, I draw and I edit podcasts or videos, and the third thing that I do is cut the lawn. Well, cutting the lawn doesn't require any high level, ingrained skill set, right? It requires skill, but it's not to the point where there's a level of like craftsmanship.
Right, I understand.
But if you were to say to yourself, I want to be a great cinematographer, right?
Right.
An above average, let's say amazing writer, and also an exceptional musician, right? One of those things is not going to be very good, because all of those things require so much time and study that you'll do the third thing almost passively, and you will eventually end up embarrassing yourself should you ever release it out to the public. So for me, the rule is like, okay, as soon as I get rid of that second thing, I'm going to move on to the third thing to make it great. It does not mean I don't have something lined up in that third spot, because I know I'm eventually going to get there.
Right.
It just takes a little bit of time for me to go, okay, I think this is good,
Right. Okay.
I'll get back to this, but I'll move on to the third thing and try to go get good at that. Right.
Gotcha. That's smart. That's
like color has been the biggest weakness in my body of work. Right. And I'd always known that it was going to be the third thing until I said, okay, enough of this other stuff. Right. So, but in understanding that was a weakness in my craft. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I had to identify what I needed to do in order to be good at color. And I was like, I think I need to land my values first.
That's
right?
exactly.
Let me land value.
That's
right?
exactly what made it work for me too.
Right. Let me land value. Let me understand how any and all of this stuff works. And then as soon as I have that, I'll start delving into color. So deprioritizing value and now going into color. That's when I started going like, oh, there's so much more to this than just value, but it gave me a foundational understanding of where to start. Right.
Right.
Because it started to become about like color temperature and blah, 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 and how it plays off to each other. And then it starts to become about like,
so much.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And then that's all of that. Like, so I don't know if you guys operate the same. I don't know if this is the same for you, Rod, right?
Mm-hmm.
But once I learn everything, right, I now have to actively unlearn it. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. You have to learn the rules and then let yourself break them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the reason why I was when you guys were talking about just like pure on chaos,
Mm-hmm.
I was smiling because I was thinking to myself like, gosh, I admire these guys who just immediately apply themselves into the thing, because for me, the reason why my shit looks so like awful is because it took time to get into that level of awfulness, like I needed the 8 months to understand just like, how does light work? How does that, how does that complementary color work? And what can I do to make it work with 3 colors? How can I make it work with 4 colors, And then from there go like, okay, I don't care enough about that. I'm just going to do the thing,
Yeah, I think for me, it was exactly what you just said, but feeling like it was too big of a mountain to climb and just saying, you know what? Just go have fun with it again. Stop worrying. Stop planning and letting all that ignorance I was feeling prevent me from doing it.
I think that's something else though, Sean. And if you don't mind me saying so, right?
No, go for it.
I think what you're talking about, it goes back to the bit that I was talking about in regards to like university training, right?
Yeah.
You existed in so much theory, but there was too much theory, right? It was impeding any sort of application that you were getting into, right? And so only until recently did you go like, okay, enough of that. I think I'll always have theory as a crutch. I'm using that term very loosely. I'll always have theory as a clutch to fall back into if I don't know how to get out of this. But for now, let me get out of that and just start actually applying.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think it's how you describe. This is just my theory. You tell me if that makes sense. But like because I came from that space too, where I was just like, okay, that's enough learning about that. Let's go make the mistakes now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I remember you saying that to me once a long time ago. You were drawing. You're like, I'm not concerned about my anatomy being correct.
Right.
And I remember you like starting to explore those ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me. Oh, go ahead, Rod. Sorry.
No. I was going to say that for me, is important I'm saying for my commissions, when I do traditionally, to have this adventure, not to have too much comfort zone of the theory, the fundamentals, and so I think that the fun is to let it go, and if I screwed up, I just go to start again, and have this fun. For me, having this journey, the adventure is more important. And I had a lot of this when I said that I was working on my commissions. That was the fun, and then discover the artistically speaking for me, personal.
Right. That's great. No, I love it.
What make me do this is that financially I was so lucky to have this comfort. Not I didn't need to worry about money, so I could just think about the other things and make this quarantine experience more productive, more fun, and hopefully I can take something good and positive out of this.
Right. Cool.
I'd come to find that the moment you take, and this is not going to be a viable option for everyone, but the moment you take the financial concept out of the equation, the more the finances part comes, right?
You are right, man.
Like, as soon as you decide, hey, I'm like, for instance, an awful exercise that I used to do, Sean, Rod, I don't know if you went through this, is that whenever I'd come up with images that I do on my own, whenever I'd come up with like fan art that I do on my own, I'd always think of it as like, I'd always go to the thing of like, okay, so what's selling right now? You know, like what do I know for sure is going to catch the kind of eyeballs that blah 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 blah, right? Like you just list off the like a potential person could buy, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I did that under that motivation, when it didn't sell or when it didn't do as much as it should have by way of attention, whether it be social media or people who are talking, whatever, right? I would be immediately going like, oh man, I messed that up, right?
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I was already setting myself up for failure just because the attitude was already off, but also the exercise, the execution of that attitude was already off, right?
Right.
So now I go like, yeah, whenever I draw, I'm all like, I'm having fun doing this drawing.
Right.
And I'd say it's a manageable percentage. Let's say like 70% of the time, people can tell that I'm having fun,
No doubt. Yeah.
and then it ends up taking care of itself financially anyway,
Yes. That took me a really, really, really long time to understand.
Sure.
But I
And
think
it's because everyone is in a different place when it comes to their journey as an artist, right?
right.
We were talking earlier, you get out of college, you're under duress with debt, right? And now you're doing everything that you can to make up for that debt, right? You don't have the luxury of going like, I'll just draw whatever the hell I want,
Right. Right.
You don't have that luxury. But to Rod's point, right? Rod was saying like, dude, I'm drawing for myself. I'm learning so much. I'm still doing my job as a full-time artist for Marvel. But right now I'm having so much fun, and it just shows in the stuff that he posts.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you.
Definitely. All right. So let me see where everyone's at here. I'm gonna hit stop in a minute here. It seems like we've done our time. But Rod, let me see. Speak so we can talk to us about where you are with your cap.
Okay, so you guys, you're seeing the Captain America as I'm speaking. Okay, so now that the painting is almost dry, I'm adding some light with this, right?
Yeah.
And put more detail the drawing, and with the whites. Then I'm going to come back with some coloring for the shadows. What I'm not sure if I go with cold this side, cool shadows, and warm lighting behind the Captain America face. So I'm still deciding, but I don't know. I don't know if I want a morning light or a sunrise light. I think that's what I'm trying to decide.
Okay. And Eric, where are you on yours?
Oh, I chose a subject matter that was I don't care about. Right? I don't care about Captain Marvel. Right?
All right.
I just wanted to do this light transition from her thigh, right? That's a harsh shadow that's cutting across her her thigh that's in the foreground. And I wanted to do that light transition from like, oh, there's something off scene is casting that shadow, and what I would do with that blue, right? But still communicate the fact that there's a sheen on that thigh once it drops into shadow, right?
Oh that's a tough one.
So now I'm trying to think about like, okay, so now that everything is being hit by that shadow, do I actively desaturate it, which Copics are just notoriously known for having 100% saturation all the time.
Right.
And now I have to mix in another color, which is probably going to be like a duller warm gray into her boot, so that it doesn't register as this red that it's coming off right now. Even as a shadow color right now, it's still too saturated, and short of going to
brown paper to help desaturate the Copics.
No, it's because I want to emphasize the pencils when I come back in and highlight everything.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my experiment this morning, is how to do this red so that it's not Copic red saturated.
Right. Right.
That's awesome.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you, fellas, for this. I found this to be a very engaging and interesting conversation. One that felt very true to the spirit of the history of this podcast, which I have not. I don't think I've been doing a lot of these more in-depth talks, like personal talks, even if we're talking about art and stuff. There was a lot of personal stuff. So I was excited to get back to that. So thank you both for going there with me.
Thanks for having me.
He's the guy.
It's been a lot of fun. I hope you invite me again.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, this was great. We'll do it again for sure. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you, fellas. And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, man.
This is the Inkpulp Podcast. This is the Inkpulp Podcast. Comics, hip hop, life.